this is where I'm going to be doing all the beading. I have the heavy filter on because I get really broken out from my mask and didn't want to put makeup on that because my skin's very sensitive, so here we are. I wanted to show my face now that I'm doing it. I don't remember what I wanted to say in this part, so this will just be a brief introduction. We're gonna make a cool skelly top, and please feel free to send me questions. I'm gonna guide you through as much as I can. I thought I would record the parts where it's just me talking at the piece, but now I can't remember what I said during any of those parts. So also, she's gonna feature very heavily in the video because she doesn't like that I was away last week, and she also doesn't like or believe that she's not the center of attention. Here we have the ingredients we need for the next steps. I have this big embroidery hoop. It's possible you only have a small one. We can work with that. We can work with a hoop that's not big enough for this pattern. Mine isn't actually big enough for this pattern either. It gets cut off there, you can see, but I'm going to show you how to cope with that. It is helpful if you have one with one of these big hinges on top though, because it gives you more space in between, and that will come into play later. Worst case scenario, you don't have that. I'll try to help you work around it. You can get these at Michael's, or craft stores, wherever. This is more helpful for a project this big. This is the pattern. I'm going to talk about different ways that we can do the pattern. You can draw your own. This is me eyeballing the one that's in the photo. This is downloadable. You can print it out in sections and tape it together, or you can draw your own, whatever you want. Here's our sweatshirt, and here is tracing paper, because we need to transfer our pattern onto our sweatshirts. The first thing I'm going to do, I can show you, if Ping Pong shows up. Yeah, she's here. The first thing I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to trim this so I get a closer idea of where I'm going. I measured this out for the front of this, but I still feel like the extra on the sides is visually confusing. So I'm just going to trim this quickly. Yeah, you're not going to trim it quickly. Actually, that's pretty good. I don't mind how that is. I might want to dip it here so that it can sit up a little higher. That's the other thing, is feel free to adapt this as you go. Everyone's going to be working on this project a little bit differently. The first thing we should do is find our center. Not all clothes are perfectly centered, but we can do the best we can. So I'm going to have my seams meet up. It's going to be impossible not to have this covered with ping hair by the time I'm done. The curse of loving wearing all black and having a gray cat. Ping, so much of your hair is on this already. Now the next step, I just got this tracing paper at a craft store. They only come in these like narrow sheets, which is kind of annoying, but we can work with it. Okay, I tried the tracing paper. It's garbage. It doesn't work. I wish I had an easier answer for you, and if you have your own answer, aces. For me, I guess the easiest thing to do is going to be to cut this out and trace it. I really wanted to just be able to put tracing paper under it and trace, but it's not leaving any marks on my shirt. So, sorry about that. Tracing paper is garbage. I don't use it very often. I don't know if it's because this is really plush or what. In any case, I'm going to trim this out, which is going to be annoying. So I'm going to time lapse it. Okay, I'd hoped to make this a little bit easier, but I did warn you that this wasn't going to be a super simple tutorial, and you want to be able to have control over your pattern here. So despite it being very boring having to cut all this out, this is probably the best way anyway. I'm only doing half because cutting out our pattern this much has made it a bit flimsier, and I want one side to be a bit stronger. So all I'm going to do is, I've got it lined up, I'm going to draw a line down the center, trace this all out, and then flip this over and do the other side. And Ping can disagree with that decision all she wants, but it's what's happening. Also, this looks smaller than I thought it would, but oh well, too late now. It's what's happening. All right. This doesn't look super straight. It's straight according to my seam, so hopefully it's straight according to our eyes. And I'm using a colored pencil, a Prismacolor colored pencil, the same ones I used to draw with, because I like them best. You're welcome to use whatever kind of tracing you want. There's those little tracing wheels, you could try those. But I'm just going to trace this out with straight up colored pencil. That's what I use on my Black Illusion. I find that, and you're free to disagree with me, this is just my personal preference after working on all this stuff for so long, but chalk pencils and that chalk roll stuff shakes out really easily, and then you lose your lines and it's really irritating. So colored pencil still comes off when you need it to, like pretty easily, but it's a lot more secure than the chalk stuff for me, and especially when I work on illusion for my beading and stuff, I always use this. And we need this to last long enough to baste in all of our lines, which is what's going to come next. So this doesn't have to last throughout the entire project, it just has to last us long enough that we can baste our pattern. And I know that sounds super time consuming and boring. The prep work for this is going to be the least fun part. That's the part where I'm like, oh god, are we still doing this? I just want to be beading already, and I'm sure you do too. But we do our prep work properly, then the beading part will go better and we'll have a better end result, which is what we all want. I think it's also important to note at this point where whenever you're struggling, if I'm doing something that I'm making look really easy, it's possible it's because I've done it a billion times. If your pattern's shifting a lot and you're not able to trace very well, just pin the shit out of it. I'm not pinning right now a lot because I'm being very impatient with this part, but yeah, if you're having problems with everything shifting, just pin more. And if I'm glossing by something that I'm making look really easy and you're struggling with it, it's very possible that it's just because I have more practice, and you can just email me or DM me and ask about it, because I'll probably have an answer for how to make it a bit easier. Okay, let's see what we've got here. It'll be time to do a bit of course correcting. Another reason I use this pencil instead of like wax or chalk is because, and this is something to take in consideration, if you're going to interface. Now, if you're using a non-stretch fabric, you don't have to interface. You can. It in some cases, if the fabric is a little bit thin, it will help hold the weight of our beads better. But if you have a stretch fabric like I have here, interfacing will help things not shift or stretch to be misshapen. I'm going to be using a fusible interfacing, and I'll show you how I apply it. That's the next step. I should also point out that I've sharpened this pencil multiple times while I've been doing this. It dulls pretty quickly on the fabric. So my next step is going to be interfacing this section, and if you're using a wax pencil, interface first, because the heat and the steam from the iron will ruin all your marks, and you don't want that. That would be bad. That would mean you had to do this step over again, and that would be a freaking bummer. So these marks will withstand my iron while I interface. Which, it's kind of a bummer that I'm gonna interface too, because this is like super soft inside, but c'est la vie. Let's talk interfacing. I have a YouTube video already that talks about interfacing, paying. It's the, no, it's not for you. It's the Pride top from June 2019, I believe. It was one of the newsletter tutorials, and I talk about interfacing when I sequin my Pride shirt, my Pride tank top. So you can go through that. I'm not going to get into as much detail in this video because it's just one part of the whole. That video tells you about different kinds of interfacing and why and wherefore. But I also tell you that after all those years in fashion and 10 years of running my own bridal business where I did couture custom bridal, I relied solely on one single kind of interfacing for pretty much everything. And it worked for everything that I needed, whether it was a super structured silk origami gown or something that was soft and diaphanous. I use the same thing for everything, and I'll be using it for this, and I'll show you right now. This is the stuff. There's a couple different names. Fusi Knit, Tricot, Tricot. This is light or medium weight, I think. And I mean, I suppose in a perfect world I'd use black, but I don't have any black. I have a ton of this left over from wedding gowns, so I'll be using this. As I mentioned, I have more detailed instructions on applying this in the Pride video. I'll link that under the comments for this video. I'm not gonna video the whole applying this because I've got my whole camera and everything set up here. So I'm just going to cut out what I need from this and iron it on, and I'll show you once I'm done. Again, this has a fuzzy back on it. So my only word of warning to you, if you're following along and you're using something very similar to me, because in the Pride video, it's a jersey, like a t-shirt material that I used this on. This is probably not gonna love a hot iron very much, so I'm gonna start light with a less heat in my iron and slowly work up. And again, in that video, the Pride video, I give you some tips for making sure this is well adhered. You want to make sure that it's well adhered, because we're going to be manipulating it so much with the beads and the frames that there is going to be some stress and pressure on this. So we don't want it pulling away because it'll stop doing the job that it's meant to do. So what I have to do right now is find the delicate balance between hot enough to fuse this to my fuzzy sweatshirt, but not hot enough to mess this up or melt this too much. All right, here is the result of my interfacing. All my edges are, oh, nope, I didn't check that. All my edges are not good. I have one edge that is not good. I have to fix that. Now my edges are good. And my pattern survived. Woo! A little late in places, but that's okay. Our next step is going to be to baste this. So as long as you can see everything well enough to baste it, you're good. We have two choices here. We can split our side seams. I mean, I'd have to cut, like genuinely cut into that to hoop up, or we can stitch this with it all together. Personal preference. I want to make this as easy on y'all as I can. And I know that some of you won't have the option of cutting your piece, because at least one person I know is doing a vest. But the vest is open in the front, so this should be okay. I think I'm going to open my side seams here before I hoop this up. Let's do it. It's just because it's going to get in the way of my hands. I don't want it in the way of my hands. We're doing the back of this on Patreon. We're using a different method. Here we're stitching right on to our top. In Patreon, I'm teaching them how to make a large scale applique, and the shirt has to split in the back like the original gown. So we're doing different, more advanced techniques there, if anyone is interested. Ping, what do you think? I don't care. I'm just trying to get fur on your project. Ah, yes. I don't use a seam ripper because I find that they end up tearing holes in everything. So I just use